Hello and welcome to the Breaking the Guard podcast. On today's episode, I turned 44 years old. It's July 7th, Monday. I am officially 44 and I feel very sore still. I was telling my wife one of the things and I've mentioned this many times over the course of many podcasts, how recovery keeps getting harder. And that definitely seems to be trending with me. Although, to be fair, I'm also lifting heavier, which naturally is going to incur more recovery costs. I've also been doing a harder style of lifting where not only is it heavy like strength lifts, I'm also doing pauses now. So I'm holding at the hardest position for like 2 seconds, which increases the level of difficulty by a high margin, let's say. Because I am I did deadlifts on Monday and man, like I've been feeling it the whole week. Now, to be clear, I'm just sore, not hurt. I can still train and I have trained martial arts 4 times this week and no problems there, but I'm just constantly sore. And I was talking with my wife about I might have to switch this up just because for a while I had dropped deadlifts because I tweaked my back a little bit doing a deadlift, although that was more of a technical issue than it was the lift itself. But now, at least with this style of lifting, is just taking a lot more toll to recover from, and I'm not really sure I'm gaining a lot out of it. As far as like I could just replace it with another exercise. While it might not have all the benefits of a deadlift, for my purposes, it's going to be plenty. Because I don't need to break any records or hit another PR. That doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is just functionality and specifically with health and for my sport. So the deadlift motion, while it has some good applications towards lifting people off the ground, it's not something I typically do, to be honest. So it probably wouldn't benefit my style really of grappling or fighting as much as maybe somebody who was a freestyle wrestler that was doing like reverse lifts like Alexander Karelin. It's not something I do, so it's not something I really need. I can get back from bent over row just fine with much less cost recovery wise. So I think now just talking through it and just explaining it to you guys, I'm definitely just gonna cut them out. Just swap them out with another exercise instead. And I also want to focus now more on explosive cardio because I've noticed as I start to train more, with most people my conditioning is fine, like I never have an issue with it. However, with guys who are very athletic and like to use speed, I can definitely feel myself get a little worn out when we start sprinting. Start getting to some crazy scrambles that are going for a long time, like 30-40 second scramble. That's when I start hitting a wall, and I want to try to erase that and get that wall out of there. And I've been averse to doing it because it's not fun. And for me, the lifting is pretty easy to do as far as the commitment. I know it's gonna suck for like the 1 minute of lifting that I have, and then I get to rest for like 5 minutes or so. So it's pretty easy in that sense. Whereas when you're doing an aerodyne bike or an assault bike, there's no part of that experience that's easy. It's designed to suck the whole time. So it takes a lot more motivation to get that going. But I can see it's an area that I could use some improvement in now. I haven't been doing lactic acid capacity style workouts, which I did in the past that benefited me. So I announce it here so that I'll force myself to do it. and I'll start adding those rounds back in. I'm gonna reduce the amount of strength training probably to just like once a week. I think last month I only lifted twice the whole month, and I lifted better in my last lift on Monday than I did before. So I'm not losing any strength. Arguably, I gained some strength in my absence, but uh, yeah, I'm good with my level of strength. I don't have an issue moving people around. So if I can just maintain it, just doing it once a week, where I can recover in a couple days and then be like optimal for the rest of the days, and try to throw in some sprinting rounds like twice a week to get that cardio up, and then just steady state cardio, uh, I'll probably do tempos instead of running would be great, but running sucks for me, for my knees and whatnot. It's been good, but I'd rather not push it. The tempos I can do without having to worry about any collateral damage. So I would plan for that. So I'm just thinking of goals for myself as far as 44, what they want to do differently, less strength training, more sprinting and high heart rate training, more just low heart rate training, just cardio in general. I want to build more flexibility. I've been, doing my mobility exercises and stretching before every training session, which has helped. My amount of injuries over the past year were far lower, not from training, not from martial arts training at least. So that's been great. But I could use some more flexibility. I was trying to work on a couple areas I noticed it. I'm like, man, if I was more flexible, I would land this. One of them is the triangle chokes. Like, I can get into triangle chokes pretty easily with my game because I'm always going for kimuras and framing off arms. So the arms are usually in a bad position for my opponent, but it's my leg dexterity or flexibility that prevents me from getting in there. And sometimes I can get in a little bit. I can get the trap as far as going over the shoulder, but I can't make a nice figure four. And even, on the calves, I can finish some people, but on the tougher guys, I just get kind of stalemated there. If I had better hip rotation, and that's specifically what I need more of, is, bringing the foot way up here. That would make it easier for me to catch those, and also omoplatas, which would be plentiful as well. The second area I noticed with back control, I've been playing a bit with straight jacketing people to try to pin the arm. And the only problem is, I can go from a seatbelt, trap, get this arm set, but I can't bring my leg high enough to hook over. Like, my foot doesn't come up too high here, not without an assist, but if I let go, obviously I lost a wrist. And that makes arm trapping very tricky for me because I have very limited, I guess that would be like internal rotation of that hip. And the mobility and stretching that I do does not really improve my flexibility. It just maintains it and opens it up so that when I go to practice, I'm already as loose as I need to be. But I need to be more flexible. So I need to do specifically a mobility routine that is working on improving my existing flexibility, in particular with my hips. So that's another goal I'm going to set for myself, and at least a couple times a week working on that to open up those hips. Because that's an area that would help. I could use some more back flexibility, particularly with lower back and middle back, because those are little tight areas. I'm not sure how much ground I will get there, but it would help me in certain situations. But let's keep the focus simple. The hips internally, that's what I want to open up more than anything else. I feel that I would get a lot of value out of that because I know I can get into those straight jacket pins all the time. I just can't capitalize off of it. and I can set up triangles very often, but just harder for me to get a nice clean bite without that leg dexterity in play. So that's another factor. Uh, Outside of that, things that I've learned over the past year, besides those things, well, I continue to be impressed with the level of growth that there still is in this sport. It's almost 30 years now and of me training, and there's still things going on that I'm learning about that I'm not good at, some things that I just don't know, despite being a student of the game and working on things constantly. That's pretty amazing. I'm not sure if that's something that's common with all sports, and I'm just not that dialed in to be able to see those subtle shifts and intricacies. I'm sure in basketball and football, like all the sports, the athletes should be getting better. I just wondered, like, by how large of a margin, because I feel like in grappling, there is still big shifts that are happening on a regular basis that change how people's approach to the game is, right? And it's not like, oh, like we made a little tweak and we got like 5-10% better. There's like big changes that can revolutionize your game in an instant. I know I've been playing more now with the inside camping positions that Gordon, I think, just released an instructional on it. I've had the fortune of being able to train with him, and he was actually doing it to me, and he taught the group that I was with what he was doing. So I had an early exposure to it, and I've played with it quite a bit, but I started doing it more since he kind of reminded me. And Jake plays a very similar game. I think Gordon has some more conscious detail of it now. In fact, I think Gordon credited Jake for some of the discovery of that type of passing. I know Roger gets a big credit of it also. But so I finally, like I told you guys before, got that part of Jake's game into my game, and it's, especially for older guys, it's a very practical way of passing because it's low energy. You're just holding positioning. But some of the subtle shifts of that head high, hips low, or hips high, head low, and when to use those added another dimension to that passing sequence of inside camping that makes it a lot more effective. So that's just one example of the position that I just started playing with, or started playing with more, and that I've gotten a lot of positive results from. So when people tell me they're bored of whatever they're doing, it makes me wonder, like, are you actually studying what you're doing, or are you just doing it? Are you being conscious of everything that you're doing, the details, how to improve yourself while you're doing it? Like, are you optimizing constantly, or is good enough for you? If good enough was enough, then yeah, I would have been bored decades ago, right? Like, I was good enough probably within the first 10 years to handle most people. So when someone says they're bored of doing something, I feel like you're just not trying hard enough, or you're not dialing in. Maybe I'm just wired that way, but whatever I do, I get obsessive with being better at. If I'm cooking, I'm always trying to optimize my recipes. My wife complains all the time because I experiment with things that are already good, and then I want to make them better. When I was making this flourless chocolate cake, which is just dark chocolate, eggs, honey, or sugar, whatever, and salt. And we got it dialed in pretty good on the first try. But then I made like 10 different versions, and she would get upset, like, oh, I don't like this one. I like the first one. I don't like this one. And then finally I get to one that's better than the first one. I'm like, yeah, but you see, now maybe you understand. Like, I had to go through a bunch of bad iterations, even though the first one was good enough to get a better product, right? I'm not afraid of that process of, the grind, of going through mistakes, even though you were at a good place. Like, I might have started here and then I dropped off a little bit and then I came back up. Like, I'll make that jump into the crater if it means I can climb higher at the end of it. And I do my best to take that approach to everything I do that I care about. Obviously, certain things that you don't care about optimizing, that you maybe, like, taking out the trash or something like that. Like, I'm not gonna rack my brain on that. But anything where I invest serious time or money into, I'm gonna want to be better at doing. So it perplexes me when I think about people who are like, yeah, I got tired of this, I want to do something else. Like, I just don't see how I could. At least with the hobbies that I've chosen or the pastimes that I've chosen, I don't see how I would get bored, because there's always something else to learn. There's always something that can be improved. And I don't know if it's a thing of being creative or of humility, or perhaps it's just ambitiousness and thinking you can do better than what you already have, right? I always believe I can. I believe there's always a better outcome, and I'm going to seek it. Whether I get there or not is another matter, but I am going to seek it. That's the path I'm on. That's the destination I have set, and the journey I'm going to travel is going to be towards greatness. And whether I get there or not is irrelevant to me, as long as I'm pursuing it. Ideally, in a path that's victorious, but even if it's not, well, I can at least let others know, hey, that didn't work for me. Maybe it's not going to work for you. I feel life is that journey, right? we all want the best life possible for ourselves and hopefully for others, but we don't really know the best way forward. We have ideas, we have clues, right? We can see from other people, maybe our parents or family or friends, like somebody life that you like and you would like to emulate. It doesn't mean you could do what they did, but it's a possible avenue to get there. And barring any other information, that might be your best path, is to emulate someone else or recreate the steps that they did to get to where they have been. It's probably why I like sharing everything I do. So hopefully you guys, if you enjoy the stuff I talk about, the stuff I teach, that you will get the same type of success and mileage that I did on my journey using those moves. And I think that's probably the greatest thing that I can do for myself, is helping other people. I get the most joy out of that. And I've talked about that before, I think recently. The best achievements were not the things I did for myself personally, rather like the things that I was able to show others and guide them on a path to success. Right? And that's why for me, that Kimura trap system is probably the best thing I've done, because anywhere I go in the martial arts world, people know that and they tell me about how it's helped their game. I was training at the UFC Performance Institute, and I bumped into Phil Rowe and him and his coach Julian, and they were all talking about how they use it all the time and this and that. I was training on Saturday at a hybrid jiu-jitsu, and I bumped into Tammy Musamechi, and she's like, oh, the Kimura guy. And then she kept saying, hey, look, I just got another Kimura. Like, I'm getting Kimuras all over the place since you're here. Just making a joke. But to me, it's a great thing to know that I've had a positive effect on someone else's life. Because the martial arts for me was a life-changing event in my life. Once I started getting into it, my whole life reshaped. And that required somebody leading me and showing me a different path. And, in this case, my brother was the one that got me into it. And then my first significant coach would have been Tirso Vols, my wrestling coach in high school, that really turned me around from being, a lazy fat kid into being a young man that understood hard work and sacrifice at an earlier age. And that completely reshaped my path for the better. So to me, it holds a very dear place in my heart, which is why I feel like it's like an obligation and at the same time a blessing that I could be able to do that for others. So for you guys tuning in, thank you for tuning in, and I appreciate all of you very much. That's all I got for you guys for this week. I'm going to go enjoy the rest of the day. See you next week.